Okay, welcome everyone. My name is Evan Wright, and I am the Community and Academic Engagement Manager at the Castellani Art Museum. Thank you for joining us for tonight's Black Photographers of Western New York panel discussion. Before we start, it's a custom of our organization that we start off with a land acknowledgement. Niagara University and Castellani Art Museum acknowledge that we are privileged to gather on the lands of the Seneca and Tuscarora nations and other indigenous communities who have stewarded and continue to steward this land throughout generations. We honor their sovereignty, demonstrate respect, and correct the stories and practices that have erased indigenous peoples' history and culture in the past and present by inviting and honoring truth. So just before we start, a little bit more about the program itself. This is a part of our current series. Currents is an intimate discussion series featuring as special guest or speaker that spotlights contemporary art issues, cultural heritage in the museum world. Tonight's program is a stimulating evening of Western New York's leading Black photographers for a panel as they share their journeys, artistic processes, and perspectives on Buffalo's evolving photography scene. This discussion brings together established and emerging Black photographers who are documenting and defining Buffalo's visual culture. Through personal stories, technical insights, and community discussion, our panelists will explore the unique challenges and opportunities they've encountered while building their careers in Western New York's photography landscape. And now I will turn it off to Tiffany Gaines, our moderator for this evening, who will start with the panel's introductions.
Thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to be here this evening moderating what is going to be an incredibly rich and dynamic conversation, I'm sure. As Evan mentioned, my name is Tiffany Gaines. I am the Associate Curator at the Birchfield County Art Center in Buffalo, also an artist and writer, and someone that is just very fortunate to be able to work with so many incredibly talented artists in the community, such as these lovely folks that we have here. So I'd like to turn it over and have each of you just briefly introduce yourselves, tell us a little bit about who you are and your work. And Pat, we're going to start with you.
Testing. Check. Hi everybody, I am Pat Cray. I'm known through my Instagram handle, Young Painkiller. I document the city of Buffalo through the light that I see it, so kind of like just showing like forgotten communities and a whole bunch of other people and places that kind of just pass by. So yeah, that's what I am.
Wonderful. Alana?
Hi everyone, thank you again so much for joining us. My name is Alana Adetola Fajemisin. I've been practicing and working in Buffalo, New York for over 15 years in the photography world. I work in every aspect of photography, whether it's weddings and events, photojournalism, commercial, portraiture, it seems like everything in between. I have a studio in the city of Buffalo that I work out of as well. And I'm happy to be here with this wonderful panel of gentlemen here. I'm really looking forward to hearing more about them and learning more about what they do as well, and hearing some really good questions from you all that you have for us. And again, thank you for being here and joining us.
Malik?
Testing? My name is Malik Rainey. I'm an educator and documentarian. When I'm not in the schools, I'm dedicating my time to just walking around my neighborhood, the Fruit Belt, Perry projects, laying fields, and just documenting youth culture and just Black culture as a whole.
I'm Brandon Watson. I'm a photographer here in Buffalo. And a lot of the work that I focus on is portraiture through the lens and telling the stories of marginalized groups, specifically with themes of belonging and what that looks like and what that means in this community.
So kind of of getting the conversation started, I'd love to talk a little bit about with each of you, your personal journeys, and to give the folks just some background. And so Pat, we'll start with you. When did you know that you were a photographer, and how has your relationship to the medium evolved over time?
Alright, this is kind of a long story. But I fell in love with photography when I was a kid. I grew up skateboarding, so I thought it was a really cool thing, but my family could never really they never really wanted to get me a camera, really, because it's a large investment. As we all know, the tools are very expensive. I had a calling for it, like right around COVID, probably within the first year. I was having a whole bunch of weird things going on. So within the time frame of that happening, I was going for long walks, taking pictures on my phone, kind of just exploring and sharing the photos, probably daily. The photos ended up kind of getting a little bit of traction on the internet, and then people were asking for prints, and I was like, oh, well, I should probably invest in a camera. And I was just still battling with the initial investment in buying a camera until I had a moment that I got hired for shooting an event, and I had my cell phone, and somebody came up to me and was like, what are you doing here? And I was like, I'm taking pictures, I'm a photographer, and I think they just kind of jokingly said that they could do the same thing. And internally that kind of lit a fire inside of me. So yeah, I kind of just went crazy after that, bought a camera and did the thing.
So for the rest of the group, Alana, maybe we'll move to you as you kind of think about, your influence and your journey into becoming a photographer. Who are some of the photographers that have influenced you and inspired you in your practice?
Okay, when I think of photographers that I find inspiration from, I think of Lorna Simpson. I think of Carrie Mae Weems. I think of Milton Rogovin. I think of photographers whose images tell a story. I'm really drawn to black and white photography. And I think those artists and photographers really have always done a really good, compelling job of pulling in, getting to know their community members over lengthy periods of time, coming back to them and seeing where their growth has been and where they started to where they've ended up. And so I think those would be my top 3 influences, even now.
And so Brandon and Malik, I'd like to turn the question over to you. Reflect a little bit about your journey coming into yourself as a photographer, and who has influenced you coming into your identity as a photographer, who has inspired you or influenced you throughout that process. Malik, you got the mic, so we'll start with you.
I mean, I could say people like, Gordon Parks, Milton, obviously, Buffalo's very own, Carrie Mae, the whole nine. I could say that, but honestly, I think I really find it within my peers. I think my peers is that's the greatest form of inspiration because I'm actively seeing them do the very, very thing that I want to do. So when I look at, Alana's work, or I look at Pat's work, or I look at Brandon's work, I'm more inspired than any big name photographer or anything like that, because I see the work that they put in 24/7, 365. So it's really it's more so my community inspires me and forms my artistic vision, so yeah.
Yeah, I think for me, a lot of the photographers that I originally fell in love with were your Richard Avedons, Roy DeCarava, Ming Smith, but those photographers in particular, I think about the work that they did that was not about any commissions or anything. It was always to serve a purpose. It was always to serve a community. It was always to tell a bigger story. And so I would say that I hope that I'm following in those footsteps. Although they're really big shoes to fill, I'm just hoping to not even place my mark, but to more so highlight and empower other people to have their voices amplified through my photography.
I love that. And to kind of bounce off of that, can you share a little bit about a pivotal moment or experience that has shaped your style or your perspective?
Ooh, okay. I would say 2018, I like tried to figure out what I was going to do as far as like how to develop myself as a photographer. Cause like before then it was like everything I learned was through YouTube. And so I like looked up every photographer in the city of Buffalo to see if I could be an assistant or like an intern or something like that. And I reached out to Luke Hopping, who's somewhere in the crowd. Shout out to Luke. And I had like no like assisting background whatsoever. He was like, hey, come shadow, come to the studio, check out everything, let me know what you think. And then from there I was like, yeah, and he was like, hey, I need like a first assistant. We ended up like traveling all over. And I would say like that was probably the most pivotal moment for me because it taught me how to like show up every day as an artist, as a photographer, not just like from a business aspect, but to learn how to craft an image, to understand the importance of the quality of your idea versus the quality of the image. So I would say that apprenticeship is probably the most pivotal moment in my photographic career.
Yeah, I love that. And just that influence and being able to learn in a practical sort of space. I'd like to open the question up if anyone else has a pivotal moment that they'd like to share.
Actually, I was just talking to my neighbor, James, about this before the panel started, but February of 2020, when I had a solo show of just my work, I hadn't been working as an artist in a while before that. I hadn't shown work that was just for me in quite a while, and I was talking with a friend of mine about, what would that look like if you decided to do some work that was just for yourself and not for a client for a while, for a change. And so the show was called Levitate. And it was really a nice change of pace for me to be able to use my camera in a different way, use my sets in a different way, work on my post-processing in a unique way, and serving myself versus serving a client. And I think that was a pivotal way for me to speak through creativity, and now I can add that into the services I offer now too. So I think it's important to try to find that balance as a creative person that's also trying to build a business.
Now, Malik, you talked a bit in your introduction about how so much of your work is community focused, and with your educational work, being around the youth and really sharing those stories through your photography. How has your life experience in Western New York informed your artistic vision and the stories that you want to tell?
The kids. My mother would kind of tell y'all that I'm a little bit of a hard A. Can't say the word, but I'm a little bit of a hard A sometimes. But I would honestly like to say that a certain man that's sitting in this audience today, Greg, kind of just took me under his wing and just got me into education. And I was still, making images, but I was making images of like flowers and grass and stuff. But it really wasn't until like I got underneath his wing where I started being like, let's turn the camera towards them. Every time when I'm in school, I talk to these kids, and I ask them like, hey, what's going on at home? What's going on in your life? Shoot, what's going on in your head? And on one occasion I had gotten a student who was talking to me. He was just like, I just want to be seen. And unfortunately, that's a problem with a lot of our kids in this public school system. They want to be seen, they want to be heard, they want to be viewed, they want to be valued. But unfortunately, some of the powers that be or whatnot, they don't. So for me, it was just kind of like, well, shoot, let's take the camera to the schools and like let's show Buffalo like what these kids are doing. And for me, it's more so about like the joy aspect and the happiness aspect with the kids. They already paint a negative picture on our youth, honestly, especially Black youth. And for me, it's like my mission is not only to educate, not teach, but to educate and then also, you know, show them. Show them to the world. Show them like, yo, like, these black boys, they be playing with Damar Hamlin. They be chilling. They don't always be on the street and all of that. So like, the kids, honestly, is probably the driving force behind everything that I do now and forever, honestly. So,
yeah. And I can only imagine how impactful it must be to get that education, that inspiration from someone that looks like that.
Yeah.
You know, and comes from the same sort of experience. It goes such a long way.
oh yeah, most definitely. Like the respect is always like there. Like, I mean, I had a difficult day today. I told you about this, Mom. But that's like that's like, you get like one of those days once a month. You know what I mean? Where the kids are just like, man, you and it's just like, I was just telling you, you just gotta sit down, dude. Like, you know what I mean? But yeah, the kids, the youth, they everything to me. So, you know, whenever I think about doing something, whenever I think about saying something, I'm always thinking about, okay, like, what example am I saying if I see this? If my students see this? So, yeah, that's pretty much it.
So Pat, I want to turn it over to you. You have a very robust social media presence, right? Young Painkiller, right? I got that right. And you just seem to be everywhere, documenting everything. Sometimes I'm like, how did he even get there so fast? What are some of the ways that you keep yourself inspired?
Honestly, it's just, I'm not really inspired or obsessed with photography and like kind of like just like being places. So the obsession is kind of, it's a driving thing for me. I feel like I have like, where people have like the fear of missing out with like going to like events and stuff like that. It's like for me with like things that are happening at a local level that are like historical. So for instance, like people know me for like, some people know me for like the brick bar burning or like the pink burning, and some people know me for like the tornado that happened on Prospect. A lot of it just comes down to just me just really being obsessed with what I'm doing and like loving what I do like wholeheartedly. Like it's kind of like, my camera's always on me. Like I don't have it on me right now and it kind of feels weird. But my camera is within like 20 feet of me at all times. It's probably 30 feet away from me now, maybe a little bit more. Freaking out. I genuinely have a real obsession with what I do, and that kind of drives me. And I also just like being outside too. Like I don't have anything else that I really like care for. I don't really care about like video games or anything like that. So where like the time is for me to do that, I would just enjoy being outside and seeing what is around me.
Wonderful. So now kind of thinking about, you know, each of you have talked a little bit about, you know, the storytelling and the conceptual and the visual side of the work, but there's also the career element, right? And the tools and the experiences of building a sustainable career. And Alana, you know, you talked earlier about just finding some satisfaction in, you know, having that exhibition, being able to pivot away from making work for a client or with their vision to being able to do something for your own self and your vision. But as you kind of reflect on what your experience has been in building your career and working with so many clients across so many different styles of photography, what resources or support systems have been crucial to your professional growth here?
I like that question a lot. I would say, when I think of some of the top resources, I would think of nonprofit organizations within our community. I've been able to be put in rooms that I feel like I may not have ever stepped into if I wasn't doing what I'm doing, and networking in a way that has kind of taken me out of my comfort zone. And I think a lot of the nonprofit staff members and board members and community members that are part of these organizations have been able to bring like a synergy into the community that I haven't seen, and I wasn't seeing in the beginning of my career. And so I think they provide support not only monetarily, right, because they're hiring you to do a job or photograph an event, but I think they're also providing support in terms of mentorships, asking what they can do to help you as an artist, as a Black artist, as a female artist. So I would say that would be probably one of the top supporters, I would say. Yeah.
And kind of in that same sort of vein, thinking about, building a career, working in the commercial sort of space, fostering those sort of connections. Brandon, you talked a lot about how that apprenticeship experience was so pivotal for you in your development and your growth as a photographer. Having that experience and thinking about, your own trajectory, how have you sort of found balance between commercial work and building yourself as a business with your personal projects and your artistic interests?
Yeah, I think the thing that changed for me was understanding that I'm my number one client, and that I need to serve myself first before I serve others. And so that's where the passion projects and the personal projects, they matter the most, because what a lot of people are looking for, they want to invest in the quality of your ideas and not necessarily the most technically sound image, right? Like, what are you what are you able to present and put forward? And I think that for me, that's what I'm always thinking about, because a lot of times, the high of getting a commercial job is like, oh, all right, like you get to work with this company, this brand, they pay you, and then they advertise the thing, they move on. Sometimes if you're lucky enough, you can build a relationship with them, but I think the thing that keeps me coming back is, okay, like I have this idea that I want to put together, like how do I make it happen? So that's when I'm blowing up Malik phone, I'm blowing up Pat phone, I'm like, yo bro, like I got 3 lights and we just, we do it on this day. And so for me, it's like, that's the thing that keeps me going. It's just like making it for myself.
Do you want to add something to that, Alina?
No, I mean, I would piggyback off of that. I think,
Please.
I would really piggyback off of that. I loved hearing you. How did you say in the beginning that you are
You're number one.
You're number one, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. Like, I think time management is so hard, right? Like in all aspects of life. But I think being able to delegate and prioritize and manage your time well enough to make space for yourself is the most important. And I think sometimes we can get caught up in a schedule and looking so far ahead that we're not just sitting with the present and journaling our ideas or calling up a friend right in that moment and saying, let's just get to work. And after all these years, I feel like I still haven't found that balance. I'm very confident in saying that I'm still very much working towards finding that balance. But I like a challenge. So yeah, no, but that was very inspiring. I'm going to keep that in mind.
I think that's so poignant. And I think the thing that people don't realize when it comes to being an artist is that you need time to just like sit and just like sit in stillness, sit in silence with your ideas, allow them to have the space to really evolve and mature and grow before you can just execute. And so I love what you said to that effect as well, Brandon, about making yourself your number one client. I think that's so important and so easy to lose sight of, especially in an industry where there is so much of a commercial and business element to the work, that allowing that space to really grow yourself and your voice and your vision as an artist is so essential. And I think that's such a perfect segue into a conversation about representation, right? We are all Black artists working here in Western New York and in Buffalo. And Brandon, I'll bring it back to you. How do you sort of approach documenting and representing Black life and culture in Western New York?
I think it kind of starts with just knowing that I can like place myself in those people's shoes. Like, especially, I mean, for me, like, as a Black artist and just as a Black person, I've experienced so many of the things that you kind of hear that just as a human being, you kind of have to deal with your Blackness. And so I think for me, it's always important to make sure that people are being seen, kind of like what Malik was saying, and understanding that, like, I'm just here driving the vehicle, but that other people's stories, that's the highlight. I mean, we've done work through 514, and those moments I'll never forget. We were out on Jefferson every single day from sun up to sundown for 2 weeks, and we met with so many families, so many people that were hurting. And so I think for me, being able to tell those stories is like, that's the thing that I get up for. And so, because we know that sometimes it's just a headline, but it's different when you really live it and when you see it every single day. And so my goal is to give as much insight as I can on what that experience is, whether I've been directly affected by it or not. So I always try to remove myself from what's happening and remove myself in the sense of, as an artist, more so being a human being first, and letting people know that like the camera is not in front of me, it's right beside me, and I'm here talking to you. Because I think that matters first.
Yeah, it has that human sort of element. I love, you mentioned working with Malik and this idea that representation and storytelling is not just one person's responsibility. It is about community and finding those opportunities to collaborate. And so Malik, I'll pass the question to you if you'd like to kind of share a little bit about your approach to documenting and representing Black life and culture here.
It kind of, I'll say it like this. At first it was really just like the mission of just like photographing my people, and to be honest, like I didn't even know what that looked like. I just knew that I just wanted to be around my people. I wanted to be around African Americans, and I just wanted to, see everyday life, see how they live and whatnot. But I think May 14th kind of it changed the mission, changed everything for me. My bad if I get a little choked up about this or whatever, but it changed from, just wanting to be around my people, and then it became like, I gotta serve my people. I don't got the most money. I can't donate to everybody's GoFundMe and business and whatnot. So what I try to do is, okay, all right, Golden Cup hasn't had a new picture on their wall for 5 years. All right, let me go talk to the owner and hey, bro, can you do something? University district, when they have the big event or whatever, hey, can I just photograph the elders and whatnot? Think back off what you said to me about a few days ago. Our elders are so important. So you never know when the last time you'll see them will be. This is straight out of this man's mouth. So it's an ever evolving process, I would say. As of right now, it's really just trying to serve people, try to get to understand their stories, and then just put them out there so that the world can view it, so that the world can understand and whatnot. So yeah.
And I mean, it's a historic lack of representation that each of you in your own ways are working to correct and to change the narrative, to change the history. And I love what you said about the importance of documenting the elders. There are a few people that I just kind of took a photo of just randomly and just not even really thinking too much about it, and then the next thing you know, they pass away, and then that photo becomes invaluable because it was a moment that you were able to catch and to see, and like you said, you never know when that last moment will be. So right. I think that's so incredibly poignant, so true. And so as we're kind of thinking about, filling those gaps of representation, the experiences of different communities, Pat, I want to turn over to you and just your experiences. What stories or perspectives do you feel are really underrepresented currently in the local photography scene?
Honestly, anything that's east of Main Street and south of Canal Side. I think that most people, whenever they want to do photo shoots or anything like that, they're like, oh, let's go to the Japanese Gardens, let's go to Delaware Park, let's go to Canal Side, let's take pictures in the theater district. But everything past that is forgotten about. And there's so many historic spaces that are just so beautiful. There's so many cool parks. My favorite park in the world is Red Jacket Park, and it's so cool. kind of a hidden gem, and I feel as though like, I think that spaces and the people that are in those spaces, like when people think of street photography, they think of like major metropolitan areas, but I think street photography can be pushed into different realms, especially when it comes down to communities that take the ladder of they take the most of what Buffalo is made of. Like the east side of Buffalo is the largest space inside of Buffalo. So I think that's one of the main things, is just everything that is east, and the small communities that are throughout it, not with everybody, with the Muslim population, the Black population, the whole Polish population, the whole Irish population, so everything. I think a lot of it comes down to, a lot of it's just being forgotten. And it's crazy, like with me, like with the work that I do, like I'm very ground focused, so like I'm on the ground, and like I see, like I'll be in a space one day, and then like the next day, like a building is, like a whole building or like a block has been decimated or like burned down or something like that. So I think that that's something that a lot of folks need to just like take in consideration. Like when they're like, oh yeah, I don't know what to take pictures of. Like there's so much to take pictures of. Like there's block radius, like there's multiple block and square miles that I have not even seen or have even like gone through, even though I go through these areas quite often. So I think just learn about the city, learn about different areas that you necessarily haven't gone. And like always tell people, like whenever you're going into work or something like that, take a new route. Like there's so many different ways to like maneuver through the city. So if you're used to taking Main Street, heck, take one of those streets that are like parallel to that, and kind of like crisscross through. Just leave 15 minutes early. You'll see something crazy, and you'll see something beautiful.
And that's such a small way to just see, you know, a community that you maybe have been a part of for so long, just differently, just through small actions like that. So I love that. Elena, I want to bring it to you. You know, when thinking about storytelling, can you share a little bit about a project or an experience that transformed or shifted your approach to storytelling?
I would probably say, I think it would go back to, I think I touched on it a little bit earlier about doing work for myself and doing, the work that I did in the solo show was based around women, and particularly women's bodies, women's confidence. I photographed a lot of people that I was really close with and people that I had to get to know based on reaching out to them through a questionnaire and seeing how they want to be seen in the world. I had them show up into my studio in very simple clothing with very minimal direction. One of my models is here who can maybe attest to whether or not that was comfortable to do or not. And I had them moving in ways that might not be a typical way to be photographed, especially as a woman. And I think that project probably was a pivotal change in my career, because I think that's allowed me to view the way I approach anyone that I want to photograph and try to disarm them in a way. I think it was Brandon that said, like, sometimes people will see us with our camera and they are just immediately afraid or nervous, anxious. And so I think if we approach the way we work with anyone that we photograph in that way, I think we can carry that on in our careers for a long time, having like the confidence to be able to disarm whoever we approach and get the best photograph from that person. So I think that helped me to pull that out of not only my subjects, but I think that gave me the confidence to do that as a photographer.
And I think that speaks to just how delicate of a balance it is between, you know, what your vision is for a certain idea or a photo, you know, and being true to that while also representing the subject in a way that feels authentic for them too. And to that point, Brandon, I'd like to ask you, how do you sort of navigate the responsibility of representing your community while maintaining your artistic voice and your vision?
Yeah, I think oftentimes it kind of comes down to, and some photographers in the room, if you know this name, cover your ears, but I've been reading a lot of Susan Sontag and her essays about photography, and whether or not it's considered an art or not. And then I think it's all about the approach. So I think for me, it really comes down to thinking about, like, not only am I photographing a person, and if I'm photographing a person who is of a marginalized community, like, what does that mean for me to photograph them, and how am I composing this image? What does the lighting say? Like, every little detail matters, because once, like, one mistake and you can stigmatize somebody, and everybody's like, oh, like, this is the representation of what this thing means. So I think it takes a lot of understanding and having empathy for people, and just have a conversation with somebody before you photograph them. Like, don't be in such a rush to just, like, make the thing and make the image. Like, have tea, sit with somebody, talk with them for hours. Sometimes I'm like on assignment and I'm spending a majority of my time talking to the person that I'm photographing, and I might only have 10 minutes where I'll actually, like, photograph them. I'm like, oh, all right, like, I won't be left with these images, but, you know, it means so much, because again, like, these are human beings that we're photographing. They're not subjects. So I always think about that. I always try to avoid the violent language that is inherently in photography. So, like, saying, like, subject or shooting and language like that, like, first, like, let's remove all of that out of the door, and then talk about, like, the fact that you're photographing a person, and that not only, like, are you telling this story, but, like, other people are going to see this, and there's somebody out there that's going through the same thing that needs to hear that. So I hope I answered the question.
No, I think that's great. And just as, like, a second part to that, you know, how do you see that intention, that care, that time that you put into working with, not subjects, with with the folks that you're photographing? How do you see that work helping to build and strengthen community bonds and understanding across different cultures, across different experiences?
Yeah, I think it starts with, again, like, having those conversations, and also being really deliberate about what like, how you're going to tell that story. Like, I think what's just as important in an image is not only what you see, but also, like, what's left out. So it's also thinking about, like, making sure that you're not leaving something out that's vital and that's important. And again, just, like, being able to create a space where people can have conversations about the work that they're viewing, right? Like, although I work in a photojournalistic background, I'll be the first to admit I'm not the most objective, because again, like, just me as coming as a black man and as a marginalized person, like, I can't do it. And so I think being able to create and facilitate those spaces where those conversations can be had, and saying, like, okay, like, you photographed this thing this way, like, why did you do that? And then me being able to say, like, okay, well, it's because of this, like, and this is the research that we did, and this is what we did, and, like, in this community, this thing happened. So yeah, don't be afraid to, you know, just ask questions and have conversation.
Yeah, and I love that, and I think that shows just how the work of being a photographer, being a photographic artist, it extends far beyond just the image. You know, it is about the conversations, the connections that are cultivated both before the photo is taken and long after, you know, and what those conversations, how they grow, how they evolve as times and cultures sort of change. So as we kind of think about looking ahead and a future vision for the community, for yourselves as artists, Pat, I want to bring it to you. What untold stories or aspects of Western New York are you most excited to capture in your future work?
Right now, I'm actually working on an active project about ice fishermen. So I've been hanging out with ice fishermen on the ice for my Sundays, taking my Sundays of me just hanging out on the ice, it kind of goes back to actually what Brandon just said. Kind of, you want to build a relationship with folks first. So, yeah, I honestly like hang out with them, drink beers, like kind of like, like we learn about a lot about each other before I like actually like taking photos. And low key, I'm honestly just a fly on the wall. And they were like trying to force me to get a fishing license so I could start fishing. But it's cool though because it's led, like the way that projects work is they kind of spiderweb off of each other. So like I built a relationship with an ice fisherman that was from Minnesota, and he got me into like kind of like a corporate gig with like documenting like ice dam removal. So like I've been in conversations with people like that, but it's like it's a weird spin-off of like a whole bunch of things. But like I'm slowly getting into like this cool like project of ice fishermen and ice fishing. So that's something I'm working on, and I just wrapped. I haven't formally like announced this, but I just wrapped my Portrait Buffalo project with you. So that's something that's going to be really interesting to see because for the past year I've been working on a project in the Broadway Fillmore in Lovejoy. So really cool.
Yeah, I'm excited to see that, how that all comes together as well. Looking ahead, Malik, I want to turn over to you. You know, you are so involved with the youth and the next generation and sort of inspiring the next group of young photographers and artists and art enthusiasts, all of that. What changes do you hope to see in the region's photography and creative industries over the next few years or just in the future in general?
Sorry, I'm thinking about it. I think you said this. You said something about apprenticeship, right? I think that's how we move forward. I think we move forward by putting the egos aside, by saying, hey, like, yeah, I know you do that, I know you do that, I know you're good at what you do, I know you're good at what you do, but instead of like fighting against each other, how about we just link up together? And then we just create, and we work, you know? But then also I feel like it's not really ego thing. I feel like it's just it's a scared thing. I think a lot of people are just scared to have that initial conversation with somebody that might be older than them, better than them, whatever you want to call it. I think once we start having these conversations, and this is kind of like a call out to like the generation before we, the older people, right? No offense, I'm so sorry. But like, is that the generation of how'd I go? But Mom. Sorry. Like, you the generation no.
Before.
I don't know how that be word. I'm so sorry. Yeah. You're confusing me, man. But yeah, the generation before us, not you, Mom, you did a great job. I just want to let you know that. But
your peers.
Yeah, but like the generation before us, I do feel like they're leaving the kids behind, and not just the kids, but like the young adults and stuff like that too. There's no sort of guidance, and it's up to the Gen Z kids, you know, to kind of like pick up the slack of previous generations. I think I speak for all of us up here when I say this. We had a very, very pivotal moment in our world, and to be quite honest, like this is the point in life where we put all the for self BS aside and we start being for us. So shoot, if they paint and you, I don't know, photograph the painter. You do it all the time. You know what I mean? Like if somebody is an author, photograph the cover of their book for them. You know, things like that. You know, just really hitting home on a community aspect. You gotta be there for each other. I think that's the thing that will honestly like shape the future. The more we start having conversations with each other, I think that's when we're gonna move forward. And I'm gonna sit here and say it up here. I have some work to do my dang self. So
I love that point about removing the ego out of it, you know, and I think that there's a misconception, you know, that there is only room for one great artist or just a limited
Yes.
number of great artists, and that is so far from the truth because everyone's voice, everyone's vision, everyone's contribution is unique in its own way, you know.
Can I add to that?
Yeah, please.
Like, everybody can eat, man.
Okay.
Everybody can eat.
Okay. So Bill's got that from you.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
like anybody can eat. Like it's been, it's so many times where news, you know, caster or news conglomerate, whatever you want to call it, they'll call me, hey, we want to know if you can do this tomorrow. No, I can't, but I know plenty of people that can. I pass the name to Brandon. I pass the name to Pat. I pass the name to Jalen. I pass the name to Teal. It's up to them to choose who they want to choose. But I give them a Rolodex of all of these brilliant people who I trust that can get the vision done just as good or honestly 10 times better. There's so much room out here to eat. There's so much room out here to share love. And we got to get to that. I can't even say get back to that, but we just need to get on that type of train. So. Yeah.
I feel like you just dropped so many gems. There's so many things that folks can take away.
I'm a preacher, my bad.
Yeah, I love that. But kind of building off of that, I'll turn it to you, Elena, and if anyone else has anything they'd like to add, please chime in. But Elena, to start with you, what advice would you give young Black photographers that are just kind of starting in their journey? What would you say to them?
I like that question a lot. I don't know if, I mean, we've all touched on it a little bit already, but I would say mentorships, you know, looking towards someone who's doing something that you are admiring, working in a medium that you've always wanted to try. It's so easy for us to, you know, pull up YouTube, right? And just be like, someone can teach me behind a screen, you know, or Google, but I think, I don't want us to lose that one-on-one communication, that one-on-one conversation that you can have with someone who's doing something that you're interested in. I don't want us to lose that. So, you know, I feel like myself personally, when I was first starting out, I was looking for that. I was very hungry to find a one-on-one mentorship, and I just feel like it was a little bit harder to do. And I'm hoping that the youths, like we're saying, younger generations don't feel that way when they look towards us. I hope that when they see the way we present ourselves on social media and the way we present ourselves in the world, I hope they do feel like we are someone that can be approached about what we do and where we got to where we are, and feel comfortable saying, you know what, would you mind sitting down with me and having a coffee and talking a bit about this? Or do you offer to teach me, would you offer to teach me how to use my camera? You know, those type of conversations I think can be really scary for a lot of people, but I'm hoping that having panels like this and discussions like this that are very open will allow people to step forward and do more of that. Yeah.
And if anyone else has any advice or wisdom that they'd like to add on to that.
Yeah, I would just say, like, get out in your community, go to your local bookstore, go to the exhibitions. Like, if something's happening in your community, like, go, show up. And it's not always about, like, walking away with an opportunity to, like, make something, but just get people familiar with yourself. Like, allow yourself to be inspired. Or, like, if you don't like something, like, go and say, like, I didn't like that. And it's cool, you know, but, like, just give yourself that exposure, give yourself the opportunity to just see as much as you can, along with building, like, your own thing. And I think Issa Rae says it where it's like, network across. So, like, if your homie does something, like, hit them up. Just like, yo, like, I have this idea, can I borrow you for half a day? And just, like, get it done. So I think that's, like, you know, that's the thing to do, is just, like, get out in the community and get yourself exposed to as much as you possibly can.
Be a sponge. I love that. So Pat, you talked a little bit earlier about, you know, your work with the ice fishermen and this project that is in the works. I'm actually going to turn over to the rest of the group to see, are there any upcoming projects that you all are working on that you're excited about, that you want to share with everyone here today? Yeah, you did your promo already.
So yeah, I have a project. So I grew up in Stone Mountain, Georgia. And for those who aren't familiar with Stone Mountain, Georgia, it's in the metro area of Atlanta. It's a really small city, about 6,800 people, about 85% black, and the monument itself, Stone Mountain, actually has Confederacy members etched onto the side of the mountain, and there are still streets that are named after Confederacy members, and so something that I want to explore is the relationship between the people living there, which is a majority black folk, and what is that like to have to be reminded of the people who have oppressed you for your entire existence, to be reminded of those names and see those faces everywhere you go. And so I'm hoping to get an opportunity to touch base with some of the folks that I knew back there, and also people that I haven't met who have been fighting against that and hoping to make a change. And so that's something that I'm hoping to explore. I started it last summer, and so I'm hoping to go back and complete that project soon, so that everybody can see it.
Can't wait to see it.
Working on like two things. One of them is this kind of like, this for myself, in this self-portrait project, where I just kind of like, I sit in the camera and I just kind of like, go through my head, little file cabinet, and I just think, it's really just called like the thoughts of me. Like that's really what the self-portrait project is. I don't want to say too much because it's very deep, but yeah, whatever. But the other project that I'm working on, I've actually been working on for about 2 years now, is a project where I, talk to different type of social classes of black families, and I try to go and find like the little nuances between all of them. So like, I guess, quote unquote, poor of the poorest and like the rich of the richest. There's a lot of similarities and nuances that go on, and a lot of people will be surprised of how much you kind of relate to a rich individual. So that's like the second project. Other than that, just trying to honestly just relax a little bit more.
Rest and taking a break is important too.
Yeah, especially when you're dealing with kids for 10 hours in a day. Okay, 7.5. I feel like 10. But yeah, so that's pretty much it.
My most recent project, I would say, is a personal project. I'm a mother of a 2-year-old, and I've been working on photographing her using my film camera. So I don't show up to a lot of, I don't shoot weddings with film, I don't shoot commercial work with film, but in my personal life, I like to work with film quite a bit more. I also I don't show my daughter on social media. It's something that my partner and I have chosen to do since she was born. And so a lot of the photographs that I've been taking of her have been without showing her face. I've been doing a lot of close-ups of her hands while she's art making, or her lips and her fingers, and doing a lot of crop work with it. And so I don't know if it's something I would ever show. I don't know what it's going to become, but it's a personal archival project that I'd like to leave with her. So that's something I've been working on for the past 2 years, and hopefully can work on forever. Yeah.
Okay. We can bring it back to you if you have something. Okay. Wonderful. Okay, well, before we turn it over to the audience for questions to answer, I want to make sure there's plenty of time for questions for our wonderful panelists. I do have one last closing question for each of you, and whoever wants to start can start it. But throughout this conversation, we've talked so much about community. We've talked about the importance of making connections, not just with the people and the groups that we want to photograph, but also our fellow photographers, our fellow artists, right? And so in that spirit, my closing question for each of you, who are some local photographers or artists that are doing good work in the community? I want you to give a shout out to somebody who is doing amazing things that you feel like you want to just shout out in this moment. So whoever wants to start.
All right, so to start, of course, everybody here.
I think they go without saying.
At the table right now. But again, like Luke Copying is making amazing work. Ben Green, he is the lead photographer for the Buffalo Bills, and what they've been able to do with that social media team and all the photos that they've been making have been nuts. So like that whole crew, Libby March is like one of my favorite photographers in the world. Jalen Wright is also like an extremely talented photographer who's like in the New York Times like every week now. Man, I don't want to miss anybody. I really don't, because I don't want to feel like anybody's being slighted. But yeah, those are just like some people that are coming to mind. But what I'll do is just like share a bunch of names on my Instagram tonight. So my Instagram name is my name without the vowels. So just type in Brandon Watson and like take out all the vowels. You can take out vowels. Like, type my name, A-I-O-U. If you see that, take it out. You can find me on there and I'll share it.
Oh my God. That's crazy.
Hey, it's a great question, though.
Yeah, that's a hard
It's
question.
like,
And don't feel like it has to be an exhaustive list. And if there is somebody that maybe is not a photographer, but is an artist or creative in some other medium that you just are really resonating with their work right now, just anybody that you want to give a shout out to. You know, we're showing love in preparation for Valentine's Day tomorrow. So it's not all exhaustive. So don't get offended if no one says your name. It's yeah.
Bree Gilliam.
Oh.
One more time. Bree Gilliam. Honestly, Idris, obviously. That's Unc. Yeah, I ain't gonna keep going. This list can go on forever. Honestly,
I think our lists
yeah.
are gonna be similar.
That's what I'm saying. Like, honestly, can I make a blatant statement? Is that fine?
Yeah.
Like, honestly, like, anybody that dedicate their time and matter of fact, this man right here, Tio, you too, gallerist. This man got a whole, hold on y'all, this man got a whole gallery on Allen and dedicates his whole entire being to showcasing other people's work.
And a photographer.
And a photographer himself. Like, please clap for that man. Please. I ain't gonna go on the long story. But that is the reason as to why I utilize film as a format. If I never would have met him, I still would have been the same stubborn kid, like, you film for me, I did you. But he knocked me upside my head, figuratively speaking, and then, it was just like, I love this thing. I love it so much. But yeah, it's a plethora of people I can talk about. But like, if you're in Western New York and you have a drive to create not only for self, but for the betterment of people, shout out to you.
Very good. That covers everybody.
Yeah,
That covers everything. Elena?
I'm gonna piggyback off of this too. And I'm gonna say the same thing, and they name people who are close friends of mine and also that I think are really wonderful. Libby March, Bree Gilliam, Idris, Alexa. I mean, the list goes on and on. Everybody at this table, but like you said, everybody who's working hard, working to produce work that's for themselves, for the community. Being vulnerable and putting it out is, it takes a lot of guts. And I think that it's easy to do now that we have social media, but I think what we're doing right now is sitting in a room with each other and talking about it and presenting our ideas one-on-one, face-to-face. I think that is, that's like the greatest gift. So thank you for having us here. And yeah.
Yeah, everything that y'all said. Yeah, everything that they said. But there's a couple guys, like people. Jeremy Gonzalez is a really talented photographer on the up right now. He really has like he's very Millen-esque on the Lower West. Ryan Ryan Arthur's over at Rivalry. He's helped me out a lot with like kind of like me finding my way. So, and I think his work is amazing. His photography is amazing. Max Collins. Yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot. Chuck Tingley. Yeah, there's a lot of people. The thing is like about Buffalo is that there are so many talented people, and then like a lot of the folks like I feel like like even hell my aunt Valeria, who's another very talented person. My cousin Hiram, which is another talented person. There's just so many, and it's honestly like it's kind of like overwhelming to kind of think about.
Yeah.
I'm still trying to think of people. Yeah, there's a lot, and I don't want to be like rude. Just at the back, there's a lot of people. There's a lot of people here that are talented also in their own right. Yeah, so. Yeah, that's it.
I love that, yeah. And I mean, I have a few that I want to shout out to. I definitely want to shout out DJ Carr, who's another incredibly talented photographer. Julia Bottoms, who painted an incredible portrait of me that I'm still not over. The Queen, Ari Moore, I think I saw her come in at some point. You know, just shout out to you for all the incredible work that you're doing in uplifting the next generation. That's something that we've talked about earlier in the discussion, and just making space for other, you know, people to be seen and heard. The Women of Colors exhibition at the Niagara Arts and Cultural Center just opened, and I think it's an incredible space where so many Black women artists are being recognized. So I want to shout out Ari for that. I also see Steve Gabrus over here. I want to shout you out as well. He's the one that did my lovely headshot in the brochure, so shout out to you. And, you know, it's an incredible series of powerful people making change in, you know, in the community for Black History Month, which I was wonderfully excited to be a part of. So thank you for that, Steve. And like you guys said, there are just so many talented people, all of you, of course, that I think we are very lucky as a community to have such a rich landscape of art and culture and community and connection. And it's really just an honor to be a part of that. So before I turn this over to the audience for questions, I hope you guys will have some questions and comments for our wonderful panelists here. I just wanted to thank each of you so much. This has been such an incredibly inspiring conversation. I know I have like taken so many mental notes of some of the gems that you all have dropped. It's been such an honor to be able to foster this conversation with each of you, and I just can't wait to see all of the incredible things that you each will continue to do, all of the stories that you'll continue to share, and just happy that you have this opportunity, this space to not only share your work, share your story, share your perspectives, but also to be recognized for the incredible strides that you are making here in our community. So let's just give it up for you guys. Evan, we can turn it over to the audience for questions and answers, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions or anything they'd like to say? Is there like a, should I bring the mic over to him?
So I'm curious if you would share an experience that you had when one of the individuals that you photographed had the experience that you observing them seeing their image either on the gallery wall or in publication, like what that experience has been like, and you know what that interaction was, or their response, and how you responded to their response.
It's over to whoever.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, I love that question, and the first thing that comes to mind was there was a gentleman by the name of Maurice Singer Sr., who unfortunately he passed away walking 40 steps away from his home during the blizzard that we had in 2022, and I was assigned by the New York Times to photograph his niece and his son, but they also asked me to photographed the funeral service, and I was like nervous out of my mind. That's probably the most uncomfortable I've ever felt in my life, because I was questioning so many things, like, is it right for me to be there? Is it even appropriate? How will people like receive me being there? And you know, his niece came up to me while I was right before the service began, and she was like, we want you to tell our story. And then everything that I felt, like my ego went out the door because it wasn't about me. And so being able to not only make those images, but then for them to see it online in the publication and then have them thanking me and maintaining that relationship and going back and doing their family portraits, that was like the ultimate gift I've ever received from somebody, was to get that confirmation that I was doing the right thing for them. And so I think, yeah, that moment is the moment where, to answer your question, like being able to not only do that for them, but then to stay in touch and keep in touch and making sure that, you know, we continue to preserve the life of Maurice Singer Sr. Through his family members is, it's like the best feeling in the world.
Any other questions in the audience? Any comments?
Thank you so much. I know all of you guys and respect all of you. I appreciate you so much for doing this. Kind of have a personal question. So I have this tremendous resource in front of me, so I feel like I have to ask. I have a very important client to me on the East Side, and I've been working with them for years and love working with them, love the work that I get to do there. But you know how it goes with schedules. We can't be everywhere all at once, so I had to schedule another photographer to be there on my behalf. And I looked at the images, they looked fine, you know, delivered them. But it came back to me through the communications director that they weren't happy with this person being there. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I guess I'm just like really naive. I didn't realize that, like, oh, I had become kind of like a familiar face or whatever it is I'm missing. It's just something myopic that I guess I just didn't even think of. So I was just wondering if anyone could comment on that.
It's me. Yeah, I think even just speaking historically about Buffalo's East Side, like a lot of people in that community, like they're not, you know, they're a tight-knit community. Everybody knows everybody. So when somebody does come around that they're like not familiar with, building that rapport is like so important. Because again, like it's more than just a job. Like these people, like they want to feel seen, and you know, if you're coming into their space and they're so gracious to allow you in their space, like that's something that's so sacred to them. So to see a different face that they're unfamiliar with, and then to be treated with an experience that you know, obviously they had to talk to the communications director about, like that's something to always be mindful of is, you know, I don't know what type of work you were doing, but like, again, like those stories are so sensitive, especially with that community of folks. So I would say, you know, it's always important to, I think, again, reach out and say like, well, who is a familiar face and who has a good understanding and a good background of this community, who can I trust, who can I lean on? And even if that has to take, you know, several conversations to get done and saying like, okay, like I'm backing this person because they did X, Y, and Z over here, or they know such, and so they're a good name and I trust them. So again, I think it's just as equally as important to not only have that relationship with the client, but then again also with the people that are being placed in front of the lens. So I would say, yeah, like to have that trust, to have that rapport, even if it's like, if we can't do it now and they only want me, like let's push this back and let's make it happen at a later time. Like, you know, do that. If you're the guy, then like, you know what I mean? Like just be the guy, honestly.
And I think to add on to that, I think that that speaks to the rapport and the trust that they have with you specifically. And I think that that's certainly something to really take and hold dear to, you know, that they feel this level of comfort and trust that the experience was likely less desirable because it wasn't with you that they have this rapport with. And I think that that's something that really goes a long way. And, you know, to Brandon's point, I think you make a great point of how can you then take that trust, take that, that trust that they have in you to build a bridge, to start to cultivate that rapport with other folks that maybe can step in the event that you aren't necessarily available. But like so many of the things that you said during the panel earlier, building that sort of trust, that buy-in, it's a process and it takes time. And I think giving the time, you know, for folks to meet and get comfortable with other people that may come into these sacred spaces, I think it goes a long way, and then it only adds even more to the trust in you and the relationships that you've cultivated through your own experiences and the work that you've done.
Hey, I have a question for you because I don't process information very quickly, and I'm always amazed when people are working in documentary fine art mode. How are you thinking about composition and adding layers of meaning and making an image more effective as you're documenting something like that that's just right in front of you? How do you create enough distance to think about that?
That's a great question.
That's a big question.
Yeah, that's a very great question. I oftentimes sit in spaces and like not even document. I kind of like visualize what I want to see and I wait for it to happen. So there's been times I've sat and waited for something to happen for like, let's say like 4 hours. I sit out in like a corner, regardless if it's raining, sleet, snow, I'm sitting there. So a lot of the time it's just me waiting for something, in a sense, not momentous to happen, but something that like kind of like fuels my vision. So, and like there's also like a lot of like fleeting moments that like I see and I'm just like, okay, dang, I wish I could do that. And then it's, okay, how can I recreate that? Or how can that be recreated? So a lot of it comes down to just patience. A lot of it is patience and trying to fill frames with a lot of layers and levels of intricacies. So like if I'm trying to document this space right now and okay, I want to focus in on one person, but I want to still have other people inside the background. How can I do that? So I'll be like, okay, like I'll focus on him, I'll focus, and I'll have the rest of everybody being soft focused, but I want for the art to be reflected inside of this backdrop or something like that. I don't know. It's a lot for me, but yeah.
You know what, I'll stop here actually. I wasn't going to, but I thought of it after Pat started talking. I kind of thought about it a bit more, and I like to think, because I use prime lenses when I work, so I don't really use a lot of zoom lenses when I shoot. That requires me to put myself into the scene. So I don't often stand off to a corner or in the back and zoom in. I'm usually going right up front and getting a capture, and then I'll move out of the way and try to be a fly on the wall. So I think shooting in that way allows me to kind of frame out what I'm looking for from the viewer's eye, you know, like I'm really big into cinematography, so I like to shoot from, you know, your typical viewer's eye. So I think that keeps me moving when I'm shooting, and that movement allows me to see things from a different point of view, you know, a little bit out of the box. So yeah, I think that's a nice, it kind of piggybacks on what you were saying in terms of like how you're cropping it as you're shooting it and getting right in camera.
I also shoot on prime movies as well, so
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
That's probably why.
big 85 movies. You know.
I'm gonna do what y'all do. I'm about to start using just primates, because I like what you said about how, like, you know, it doesn't, you know, because when you use zoom lenses, like, you got 300 millimeter, man, like,
Yeah.
you know, over there, like,
Yeah, you could be
I go get them over there, but like, I gotta get over there, like, you know what I mean? But yeah, it's something about like inserting yourself in the space, and I think that that's just one layer, and then I think that like the second layer is the intrigue of the situation that's going on that we're viewing, and then I think the last one, I should be able to speak for all us when I say this, is the care. So when you put all of that together, I feel like it just makes it easier. Like I tell the big bro all the time, I'm like, hey, like, yeah, so you got like move deer, and then like you should do this, and I just like, bro, it's all instinctual with me, man. Like it's energy for real, for real. You know when you're welcomed into a space. It doesn't have to be said, it doesn't have to be vocalized. It's felt. So with that being said, you know, it's about like inserting yourself into that space, and then also just kind of, you know, always thinking about those things that's in my head, like the care process, the intrigue. That's almost like the driving force behind how it's going to be composed, how the final frame will look. You know, there's been times where, it's one of my favorite images, I was at the Perry's, and I really wanted to hold a landscape of that one basketball court with the big mural on the backdrop. But this adorable little girl just so happened to just cross in the middle of my frame, and I was just like, nah, I love everything about that. You know, sometimes, you know, it is about composition and framing, but sometimes the image will frame itself if you just wait, literally. So I think, you know, patience plays a big factor, but then also just looking at the layers that you have within yourself. Like, why is it that you want to, I'm trying to figure out the word, not like capture, because that's negative, but how do you want to, I guess, represent what's going on in front of you in a truest and absolute form. Bingo, there you go. I love y'all so much. But yeah, pretty much, yeah. So that's like my process, I guess.
There's another question.
Oh, word. Do this if you guys want to keep that over there.
Sure.
A lot more open-ended for y'all, getting inside the minds. Like, what is the purpose of photography to each of you individually? Like, for example, getting you guys started, is it storytelling? Are you doing commercial work? Is it just for sales? What's the purpose of photography to you as a photographer?
The purpose, preservation, connecting history, you know, being like a conduit for historical events. You know, I feel like that's really important. I feel like everything that we do, we can look at it as some part of history, and then it's like, okay, if we want someone to see what's happening, how do we do that visually? So I think walking into a space and feeling comfortable with knowing that someone's gonna look at that photo that we've taken and connect what was happening without having been there, I think that puts a lot of weight on your shoulders, and I'm happy to carry that weight. I think it can be daunting at times, but I think that we are making strides, and I'm happy to be up here with gentlemen who are doing the same, very much so. So that's a really tough question, but I'm curious to hear what everybody.
You said why?
What?
Why?
What?
Why?
What is it?
Why do we put it?
What's your why?
What's my why? Oh my God, I'm sorry, man. I'll be completely honest with you. I'm still figuring out the why. And I think that that's the most interesting thing about it. Because it allows me to kind of be pulled a little bit. I used to take myself seriously, but I don't anymore. But yeah, like, I think the flow of it is what really intrigues me. You know, I have a lot of down periods. I mean, this is the first photo-related thing I've done in 6 months. Besides my self-portrait project, but I don't count that because, that's like for me. Like, that's not for anybody else, it's not for the community, that is strictly and solely for me. But I haven't made a friend besides with me for 6 months. And it was because I had to ask myself that question. Why do you do this? Why? There's plenty of things, showcasing the youth. Showing them that, like, hey, they not all YNs, if you know, you know. They're not mischievous, they're not disrespectful, they're just misunderstood. And to be completely honest, weren't you misunderstood once upon a time in your life? Every last one of us in this room. I'm pretty sure we all had an educator or a teacher that has looked at us and all said, oh my God, that girl, that boy. It's just how it is. I don't mean this, honestly, I'm sorry. But that's just how it is. There's plenty of whys, man, honestly. And I don't think I'll ever wholeheartedly come to just one why. I'm just here for the ride, man. I'm here for the ride. Whatever that looks like is what it looks like. But I know that the youth is always going to be the main focus of everything that I do. So maybe that is my why. I don't know. In a roundabout way, maybe it is. But I don't know. I don't.
I think for me, it's to serve. Again, like I'm the first artist in my family. So the black people in my family, people were like, "Why are you doing that? Like, you don't want to do X, Y, and Z." I'm like, no, I don't. Like, I want to make pictures, I want to make art. So I think for me, it's about, I don't know, just like serving people in a way where it's like, they're helping me as much as I'm helping them, I think, because like, again, like a lot of what I work on now is about like belonging and like, what does that mean? So I think for me, it's like following my curiosity and just trying to figure out my place in this world, as well as, I think other people are wanting to testify that as well. And so, again, it's just like it's a bridge. It's like, hey, I'm trying to figure out the world, you're trying to figure out the world, where we belong, who are we? So I think my purpose is just to serve, and I'm lucky enough to have found a camera to fulfill that mission.
Figured it out. I've always like kind of felt that there's like a documentation that needs to be had here in Buffalo and Niagara Falls and West New York. So yeah, I think like honestly like archival like purposes, like I feel like there's like it's like my duty in a sense, like kind of be there and take pictures of stuff, because we never know, like just the same as like elders and like people, like buildings are leaving us like rapidly at a rapid pace. Our streetscapes are changing so much. So yeah, I think my main calling is just like archival purposes, but then also like fine art. Also, hopefully that answers your question.
There's been a bit of discussion about family. You just said that you're the first artist in your family, and Alana, you said that you're starting to document your 2-year-old. And I was just wondering if there was, this is very broad, but if there was like any specific moment, image, or family member in any of your history that like specifically inspired you to pursue photography. that could be taken in any way.
It's actually a image from early last year, maybe. I don't know. But I made an image of my mom. Love you, lady. Made an image of her. We had got our roof on our house fixed. And she did one thing. And I just so happened to have my camera on me. And she raised her hand like this. And she looked up at the roof. It wasn't completely covered, like it still had like just the wooden beams and the sun was coming down and everything. That was a solidifying moment for me, honestly, just, you know, seeing her reaction to that picture really shook me to my core. I don't even have a lot of pictures of like me with my friends and whatnot, so like for me it's kind of just all about like documenting those who, I don't know, just in my close proximity and things of that sort. But I would say like I made that image of my mom and that just, man. Yeah, the image of my mom. Putting her hand up as if she was talking to God. Amen. But yeah, the image of my mom. So you done
So I've heard several of you speak about mentorship tonight, and as you've all gotten to the point in your careers where you are mentors in your own right, what's the most important lesson you think you can pass on to emerging photographers about photography that has nothing to do with the act of making images?
Be happy and do what you love. Because if you're not loving it and you're not passionate about it, you're going to fall apart while trying to do this thing. I think that a lot of folks do stuff like to just for the look, but just be passionate about the thing that you're doing, and you'll be successful in it. Passion, it brings success. So that's one thing I would say.
I would say learn the business side of things. Don't be afraid to, yes, I think we can all add to that. You know, don't be afraid to learn how to run your business. Don't be afraid to reach out to people who can help you do that. Utilize the resources around you to be able to put, you know, start a business account, learn how to do your taxes, which we should have been taught in school. You know, all these little nuts and bolts that I think a lot of people are scared to approach. Those are also a part of being creative and learning how to create a business out of being creative. So I think that would be my biggest piece of advice for sure.
Be yourself, and with that, yourself starts to sprinkle into everything that you do.
Read a lot, write a lot, allow yourself to get bored. So like when you have that idea when you're in the shower and you're like, oh, that's crazy, it's not crazy. And like go write that down. I have a commonplace notebook, so like I'm always writing down quotes, stuff that I find. And just like start figuring out the way that you see things. Like don't try to like mimic anybody else. Because nobody really has it right anyways. You don't have to know the rule of thirds and all of that. It doesn't really matter. Just like really pay attention to the way that learn how to see things the way that you see it. So yeah, and then just hang with the homies, be in the community, touch grass.
Touch grass. Touch ice. It's all ice right now.
Don't touch the ice. Touch the ice.
Don't touch the ice. Not that bad.
Unless there are any more questions. Oh, we've got one more in the back.
I want to know guy's like dream shot, like that one photo or project that's like starter's line and everything works out and like I get that shot or I get that project done, you're like, man, if I die today, I'm good.
Wow.
So my dream project actually would be to, I'd love to do something with like an intergenerational type of like project with like, whether it's like child to grandparent or parent to, or like, adult to older parent, where they get an opportunity to have cameras in their hands, and they can document their own stories and come up with a scrapbook for themselves. I really want to encourage people to get cameras in their hands and start documenting and start writing. And so for me, like the reward would be to do whatever I can to facilitate to make that happen. Because I really want to hear what other people have to say. Because I mean, as talented as a lot of us are sometimes, like we don't always have the words or we don't always have the right composition because sometimes we're just not there enough. So I'd really love to hear what other people have to say and put cameras in other people's hands. But I don't think I would stop. Like, I'm gonna go until I physically can't move. So like even if I got like one finger and one good eye, like we're gonna make it happen.
No, it was one photo, one job, one project I could do.
You did it, you died tomorrow, you feel happy, satisfied, your dream done.
I'm all about legacy, so I would love to open up my own school and teach kids how to do photography and teach kids street photography and like make the obsession, like kind of make it contagious. So piggyback off of what Brandon said, which is putting cameras in kids' hands. On a personal level, it would be cool to document the Olympics or some kind of crazy major sporting event. That would be something that would be really cool.
Bill Super Bowl. I like that.
Los Angeles and New York City.
Yeah, that's true. So it's very you can touch it. It's touchable. I like things to be manageable. Or go to Japan and document the Keirin racers. That's another one. If folks don't know what Keirin racing is, it's bike racing, but in Japan, it's like the only way they can bet. So it's another cool thing that happens in the mountains. So that's another thing, but I have to learn Japanese first. So yeah.
So if there aren't any more questions, we can get ready to close out. Thank you guys for incredible questions and conversations. So let's give it up to you guys. Thank you for coming, for being here, for supporting our panelists. Pat, Alana, Malik, Brennan, thank you guys so much again for your time, your wisdom. It's been such a pleasure to sit and chat with you guys and onward to even more greatness. Yeah.
Thank you again, Tiffany. My name is Evan Wright again. Thank you to all of the panelists for such an insightful conversations. We deeply appreciated hearing about your experiences as artists and grateful that you're able to share them with us tonight. Just also too, we would like to give a special thank you to our sponsor, Lofter LLC, who sponsored this event. Thank you very much. And just as a closing note, we would love to invite you all to a beautiful reception that we're having on March 6th. If you have not noticed through the time that you've spent here, this is a brand new exhibition. Abraham Ferrero, New Directions Going Up. Abe is actually back watching in the background, so he's back there. And then we have another opening concurrent with this of Influence, which is photographing and documenting the tattoo artists in Niagara County as well too. So that's going to be a really great double show, and we're having a panel with that as well too. So thank you all again for coming out. Greatly appreciate it.